revealed. The incredible journey of 1,000 Gilded Age servants touching lives in unexpected ways. Clara awoke before the first light stretched across the rural Pennsylvania hills, her dreams of a better life mingling with the sounds of clattering pans in the grand kitchen. The air was thick with the rich aroma of coffee as it brewed, filling the mansion with warmth before the Carsons emerged from their slumber. She stood there, apron tied snugly, heart pounding with hope. Each day was a fierce reminder of the economic divide. Today, however, felt different, like the winds of change whispered the promise of something more. As Clara meticulously dusted the priceless antiques that adorned the parlor, she longed for release from the burdens of servitude. The stories she overheard rippling through the halls carried the richness of privilege, the very life she yearned for but could never touch. Yet, in the flickering shadows of wealth, she found happiness in her friendship with Juan, her fellow servant. Late-night conversations about dreams of freedom and worlds beyond the gilded walls often soothed her aching heart, igniting a flicker of resilience that kept her moving forward. But like a tempest on the horizon, tragedy struck. The news echoed through the mansion. The Carson's son, Timothy, had been injured in a factory accident. Clara's chest tightened as she saw glimpses of the pain in the family she served. Here was a moment that brought her community's struggles to the forefront, reminding her of her own family toiling in the fields. As she rushed to attend to their needs, the tremors of grief floated through the air, sparking a flame of justice within her. It was no longer just about her. It was about every life affected by the cruelty of industrial greed. Amid the chaos surrounding Timothy's injury, Clara felt a burning anger rise within. As she cleaned, her mind churned with thoughts of changing conditions for her fellow servants and factory workers. How they deserved more than the meager wages and long hours. Day by day, Clara and her colleagues united in hushed whispers to share their pain, hopes, and the fear of losing everything. Yet it was ignited by the accident. The flicker of change began to glow. But everything came to a head the night of the grand gathering that the Carsons held, claiming to support Timothy's recovery. Clara, along with her fellow servants, found themselves faced with an opportunity simmering with tension. In that precious moment, she felt every heartbeat of their collective struggle. Would they allow fear to silence their truths, or would they find the courage to speak out for what was right? As Clara stood among the silence of the stunned elite, her voice, small yet powerful, broke free. She shared the sacrifices, the dreams, and the stories of the unseen lives behind their gilded facade. The room held its breath, and Clara, trembling but strong, felt the weight of her community's struggles lift her spirit. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension in the room was palpable, and Clara's heart raced. Every eye watched in disbelief, the air thick with anticipation. Would the Carsons finally acknowledge the humanity beneath their opulent lives? Or would injustice carry on like the steady drip of water on stone, hardening the divide between them? As Clara stood there, voice quaking yet filled with hope, she couldn't shake the questioning of whether true change was finally within reach, or if the gilding would remain intact. Clara's breath hung in the air, the moment stretching like an eternity. Faces shifted from shock to narrowed eyes, some betraying barely concealed disdain. The weight of her words echoed against the lavish walls, a rich tapestry of privilege that seemed to suffocate her. She felt as if the eyes of an entire world were piercing through her, judging each syllable. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. Suddenly Mrs. Carson rose from her chair, her expression a whirlwind of emotions. Clara's heart sank. She expected disdain. But instead, Mrs. Carson's eyes shimmered with something unexpected. Was it understanding? Or a flicker of guilt? My family has been touched by hardship, Mrs. Carson began, her voice strained, gripping the table for support. But we cannot forget those who toil to keep our lives comfortable. Muffled whispers swept through the room, like the rustle of autumn leaves. For Clara, it felt like an opening the tiniest crack in the walls that separated them. Yet, the whispers turned sharp. Timothy's closest friends, rising from their plush seats, voiced their discontent. They argued that such discussions were burdensome, that a proper gathering should remain focused on healing rather than stirring grievances. Clara felt the sharpness of their dismissal like a slap, the divide deepening once more. As she stood on the precipice of despair, one's steady presence brought her back. He stepped forward, his eyes burning with resolve. We cannot ignore our struggles. The longer we stay silent, the heavier the weight becomes. His words wrapped around Clara like a warm blanket, reigniting the fire in her spirit. With newfound courage, Clara and Juan joined hands, their solidarity a physical representation of their community's strength. They were the heartbeat under the gilded surface, the glue binding together those who dared to dream of change. Other servants, drawn by their conviction, began to rise, finding their voices amidst the turmoil. A murmur swept through the crowd, shifting from judgment to intrigue. It was palpable. The Carsons were no longer the only ones commanding the room. Clara's heart soared with hope as she glanced at the bystanders. One or two men looked troubled, while a few women whispered among themselves, leaning in closer. Imagine a world where we all prosper, Clara urged, desperation giving her words an urgent edge. We are all part of the same community. If we work together, can't we lift each other up? As her voice resonated, Clara saw a glimmer of recognition in their eyes. Could it be? Was there a chance that the gilded walls might finally come down? Timothy's father, seated quietly in the back, cleared his throat. I've always believed in the good of my family's work. His voice, although shaky, contained an undeniable strength. Hearing your words ignites a reminder of our humble beginnings, before wealth overshadowed our humanity. The tide began to shift. Conversation sparked as guests turned toward one another with expressions of curiosity and concern. Clara could feel the pulse of change coursing through the room. Hope crackled in the air, threatening to light a fire that no amount of wealth could extinguish. But just as the atmosphere thickened with tentative possibility, a cold silence struck. A figure stood dark against the light, someone who had been too quiet till now. Mr. Carson, stooping slightly, wore a mask of irritation. "This isn't the place for your grievances," he barked, his voice sharp like broken glass. "You are here to serve, not to lecture." The joy in Clara's heart plummeted. Was this the end of the moment, or the beginning of a struggle she hadn't anticipated? As Clara looked around, she felt that familiar knot tighten in her chest. Was this all for nothing? Would fears and traditions choke every ounce of promise she had felt just moments ago? For the first time, she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, knowing that her fight was just beginning. Just then, a soft breath swept through the crowd, one that resonated with potential. Would they stand with her? Or would she have to face the tide alone? Clara knew now more than ever, the journey toward justice was fraught with peril, but she was ready to navigate through the storm. As the crowd's murmurs escalated into a crescendo of voices, Clara closed her eyes, praying for unity, for courage, for a chance to rewrite the narrative. What would happen next? Would fear prevail, or would they forge a new path together? The tension in the room snapped like a taut wire, the air electric with a mix of disbelief and simmering anxiety. Clara opened her eyes to find dozens of faces, some sympathetic, others hard with disdain. Deep down, she felt a flicker of defiance grow within her. This moment could shift the sands of their reality if they could just harness it. Mr. Carson, one's voice rang out, steady and unwavering. We are people. We deserve to be seen, not just to serve and be silent. This declaration hung heavy in the air, reverberating against the golden well-styled decor. Clara wondered if they all truly grasped the perilous balance they danced upon. Mr. Carson's glare hardened, his features twisting into a thunderstorm of disbelief. You think your opinions matter here? He sneered, looking between the gathered servants and his guests, who seemed both captivated and horrified. This is a party, not a platform for your radical ideas. Know your place. Clara's heart raced. Those two words, know your place, struck a chord of anger that resonated deeply with more than just her. They were a reflection of a system built on silence, on servitude for the sake of comfort. But as she glanced at one and the other's spirits ignited, she could sense that the tide was rising. Knowing our place doesn't mean accepting the status quo, Clara interjected, her voice stronger than she felt. We are not just your help. We are the hands that prepare your meals, the footsteps brushing against your floors, the voices echoing unrecognized. You know our stories intimately. Now it's time to listen. A ripple of murmurs surfaced among the crowd, some guests shifting uncomfortably in their seats, while others shared glances laced with apprehension. Clara caught sight of a young maid, a sweeping glance of determination igniting hope in her eyes, as if Clara's words were setting off small fires of courage across the room. We're scared, the maid finally spoke, her voice wavering, but resolute. But we're tired of staying silent. We want more. The honesty in her statement struck like a match in a dark room, illuminating shadows that had long been ignored. Clara clasped one's hand tighter, feeling an unusual sense of strength. If we want to change this, we need to be brave together. The only way we'll make a difference is by standing united. Are you with us? She challenged, looking around the room, her eyes pleading. As the silence deepened, Timothy buried his face in his hands. His father's shoulders slumped, a faint gasp escaping him. Did he understand what was at stake? The winds of change were no longer a whisper, they were howling, desperate for attention. Slowly, surprisingly, heads began to nod. A handful of the guests, stirred by the raw emotion floating in the air, showed signs of engagement. Clara's heart dared to hope. Was this the snowball effect she had dreamed of? But as encouragement began to swell around her, Mr. Carson's jaw clenched tighter, his voice laced with fury. This isn't happening, he shouted, rising. Enough. You will regret this. Clara could feel the flame of resolve reignite. Others were joining her awakening, stepping up. But what about those who remained in the shadows, who felt paralyzed by fear? Could she reach them, or would Mr. Carson's anger snuff out the potential blooming in that very room? A moment of breath held in the air lingered, punctuating the tension. Were they ready to stand against the storm brewing? Would they unite under this banner of shared humanity, or crumble under the weight of fear and tradition? As she faced the uncertainty, she heard an unexpected voice from the back. Wait! It called, a beacon amidst the chaos. Who was stepping forward now that the conversation was straying into dangerous waters? Clara's heart raced. Who would it be? And what could this newcomer reveal that might tip the balance one way or another? The crowd shifted, and Clara squinted against the dim light at the back of the room. A figure emerged, hesitating for a brief heartbeat before stepping into the glow of the chandelier. It was Mrs. Fletcher, one of the longtime guests, known for her charitable donations and polished smile. Gasps rippled through the audience. Why was she speaking up now? Mr. Carson. Mrs. Fletcher's voice cut through the tension like a knife. You may think we are just your party guests, and that we have power over these workers, but you're wrong. Clara watched as Mrs. Fletcher's usually delicate features now shone with fierce determination. These people who we call staff are the very foundation of our lives. They care for our children, they prepare our meals, They clean our homes. And they deserve our respect. A murmur spread. Clara couldn't believe her ears. Was this true? Was someone from their world actually standing up for them? Perhaps you didn't notice, but they're human beings, she continued, her tone unwavering. You've taken their voices, hidden them away, but today we hear them. With each word, the tension in the room began to shift. Clara felt hope thunder inside her chest. Could this be the moment they'd all been waiting for? Mr. Carson's jaw worked, his fists clenched at his sides, unable to shout. The flicker of fear in his eyes revealed that he was losing control. What would he do? Clara's thoughts spiraled as she imagined the confrontation. She had witnessed enough of his fury in the past. But they threaten us, Julia. He spat back, trying to regain authority. Do you really think helping them will lead to anything good? It will ruin everything we've built. They should know their place. Mrs. Fletcher straightened, her resolve only growing stronger. Our wealth means nothing if it comes at the cost of someone else's happiness and dignity. It's time we take back our humanity, Mr. Carson. We can change the status quo together. This wasn't like anything Clara had witnessed. She watched as more guests whispered amongst themselves, their eyes flicking back to Mr. Carson, then to Clara and Juan, as if reassessing their own roles in this societal web. The younger maid, emboldened by this sudden solidarity, stepped beside Clara, her chin raised defiantly. We should support each other, the maid spoke loudly. We want fair wages, respect, a chance to dream beyond these walls. And she paused, her courage mounting. You should want that for us too, if you care about the future of this community. With a slow nod, more voices joined in, hesitant but rising in conviction. The revelations were infectious, igniting a chain reaction. More employees stepped forth, echoing the desire for dignity, unity, and change. They formed a line of boldness running alongside Clara and Juan, each identity intertwined in the force of their collective voices. Clara felt the heat of the moment wash over her. Could they really change this world together? Her heart thumped wildly with every affirmation of strength around her. But what would happen when the storm of confrontation finally broke? Suddenly, Mr. Carson shoved a chair backward, causing it to crash against the floor. This is unacceptable, he thundered, his fury spilling over. You think siding with them will save you? You're all about to find out just how powerless you truly are. The words hung in the air, ominous and threatening. Clara's stomach twisted, but as her eyes scanned the growing faces of support, a spark of resilience surged within. They weren't just servants anymore. They were standing together as equals. Would they weather the backlash? Clara's mind raced with possibilities and fears. She didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was clear. They were not going back to silence. Just as the room edged closer to an explosive confrontation, Clara wondered who would rise to challenge Mr. Carson next, and what untold stories might finally come to light. The room was on the brink of a transformation she had only dreamed of. Would it come to fruition, or would it all fall apart? Mrs. Fletcher's declaration hung frozen in time, the weight of her courage pressing down on Mr. Carson like a boulder. Clara held her breath, the rising tension filling the room with electricity. All eyes were on him now, his face flushed with anger, confusion, and fear. Mr. Carson's world was slipping through his fingers, and for once, Clara felt a glimmer of hope. Unacceptable? Mrs. Fletcher continued, her voice unwavering. What is unacceptable is how you viewed these people all along. Just numbers on a payroll. The murmurs grew louder, the voices of anxiety transforming into affirmation, igniting a pulse of rebellion that vibrated through the crowd. Mr. Carson's face twisted as he surveyed the sea of faces once loyal to him. The proud gentry began to fidget, uncertain of where their allegiances should lie. The chatter fluctuated as if the walls themselves were reverberating with emotion, compassion, resentment. Clara's heart raced, Could they really stand up to him? Then, from the back, a voice cried out, "We want to work together. We deserve to be heard." It was Mr. Thompson, the quiet but respected chef, his broad shoulders squared against the encroaching wrath of his employer. The room erupted into a wave of support, hands clapping, voices raising in solidarity. Enough of this oppression. We are tired of being customer service with push-down heads. Clara recalled Mr. Jenkins, the stubborn but gentle butler, stepping forward and pointing at Mr. Carson. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. This was more than a revolt against Mr. Carson. It was a reckoning against years of oppression, a catharsis she longed to be part of. She saw how every person moved towards the front, each motivated by their own story, their own fight for dignity. But just as hope flooded her veins, Clara saw the atmosphere shift. Mr. Carson's eyes blazed with fury, and for a brief second, it seemed as if the air in the room was about to snap. "You're all fools," he shouted, swinging his arm in frustration. "You think this is some fairy tale? Stand beside them, you'll lose everything." Clara's heart sank. What would happen if the backlash erupted? Suddenly, a surprising presence broke through the tension. A young girl, no more than 16 and still in her maid uniform, stepped forward. Her voice was soft but echoed the sentiments of everyone there. "But what if we gain everything? What if we learn to work side by side?" The crowd was taken aback, clearly moved by her vulnerability. Even Mr. Carson's composure faltered, momentarily silencing his raucous anger. Clara felt the tears fill her eyes again. This girl represented all their aspirations, the innocence of hope. Mrs. Fletcher was radiant now, her eyes shining with pride. "Yes, this isn't just about survival. It's about a future we can build together. Change starts here and now." The room erupted into cheers, voices rising above the debris of Mr. Carson's threats. For the first time, Clara felt like she belonged, not just as a maid but as a person who mattered. But just as the crowd roared with newfound solidarity, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. Startled, they turned to see two staff members struggling to contain a burst of wild energy spilling from a stack of dishes. The clanging broke the moment, and for the first time in ages, laughter erupted, lighting up their faces. The struggle wasn't over, but the power within them had shifted. Would the chaos bring them together or tear them apart? Clara's heart raced as she thought of what came next. Could laughter truly heal the wounds they had suffered? The sound of laughter echoed in the room, a beautiful defiance against the tension that had just moments before threatened to engulf them all. Clara looked around, surprised to see smiles spreading across faces that had known only servitude and sorrow. Would this light-hearted moment bridge the chasm between them? Mr. Carson, however, stood frozen, shock written all over his face. He could feel the once loyal staff shifting gears, turning from wary followers into empowered individuals. His anger surged, but deep beneath it lay something else, a flicker of fear. As the clamor continued, he clenched his fists, desperate to assert control over the situation. Amid the laughter, Mrs. Fletcher took her chance. "Let us not lose this moment," she called, her voice clear and strong. "We must seize this opportunity to redefine our purpose here. We are not just caretakers, we are a community." A wave of agreement washed over the crowd. Clara's heart swelled. This wasn't just a gathering. It was the beginning of a movement, their collective voices stitching a new narrative together. "Right. Enough of being pushed around," Mr. Thompson added, stepping forward again. "Let us show them what we can do. We've been strong together before. We can be strong now." With a simple cheer, the crowd rallied. They started to talk about changes they desired: far better communication with management, fairer wages, shared responsibilities. Clara's eyes widened with each proposal, her mind racing with all the possibilities that opened up before them. But in the corners of her happiness lurked uncertainty. What if Mr. Carson's threats came to pass? What if they stood together, only to have it all crumble beneath them? Before she could dwell on her fears, a familiar voice broke through the air. It was Mr. Jenkins, now standing taller than Clara had ever seen him. "Doesn't it feel good to speak out?" he asked, an unexpected grin cracking his usually serious demeanor. "Yes," they all shouted back. Laughter filled the air again, something light unfurling within their hearts. For the first time, the sound pushed back against Mr. Carson's oppressive reign. "Now we need someone strong to lead us," Mrs. Fletcher pressed, glancing around the room as she spoke. "Who will be our voice? Who will make sure this isn't just an outburst but a change?" A murmur of voices flared, and as eyes darted around, Clara felt her breath hitch. Could they really look to her? Surely, they needed someone with more experience, someone fearless and established. But then she felt an unexplainable urge to raise her hand. It was as if all those nights of watching injustice unfold had finally sparked into flame. Clara took a bold step forward, pushing aside her fears. I can help. I may not have the status, but I believe we all deserve to be heard." A wave of astonishment rippled through the crowd. How precarious the moment felt. A hush fell as Clara glanced at their faces, some brightened with encouragement, others shadowed by trepidation. Mr. Carson seized the instant, his voice hoarse from seething anger. "You think I'll let this happen? I'll have your heads for this travesty." But Clara felt the warmth of hope envelop her, igniting a courage she didn't know she possessed. "No, Mr. Carson. This isn't a travesty. This is a beginning." Cheers erupted, shaking the very foundations of the estate. At that moment, Clara saw something shift in Mr. Carson's eyes. Was it fear? Was he finally seeing them as people? But before she could contemplate the implications, a loud crash interrupted the vibe once more. This time, it wasn't just a handful of dropped dishes. A shelf had tumbled down, revealing hidden supplies. Old uniforms, forgotten tools, and even journals filled with stories of life before this place had taken over. Everyone turned to watch as Clara's heart raced. What would they discover? What secrets lay beyond this unexpected challenge? Their journey unfolded, and the air buzzed with anticipation. The unexpected crash resonated in the air, drawing collective gasps from the gathered crowd. Clara felt her heart pound, not just from surprise, but from the rush of adrenaline that surged through her. The fallen shelf was more than just a heap of clutter. It was a doorway to their past, a treasure trove waiting to be explored. As the dust settled, Clara stepped closer. Shadows flickered over tattered old uniforms, the fabric frayed but still rich with stories. A warm glow ignited in her chest. These were remnants of lives once lived fully, not just hidden away under layers of dust in a forgotten corner. She knelt down, brushing her fingers over the worn fabric of a maid's uniform, imagining the woman who wore it, the laughter and tears encapsulated in its fibers. "Look! Journals!" Mrs. Fletcher's voice broke through her reverie, excitement bubbling from her. Their collective curiosity surged, pulling everyone closer. One by one, the staff reached for the journals, turning worn pages filled with elegant script and sepia-toned photographs. Each entry chronicled days of hard work, dreams of freedom, and even recipes passed down through generations. "Can you believe this?" Mr. Thompson exclaimed, as he pulled out a particularly large book. It opened with a gratifying crack, revealing a list. "These are names of those who fought for better treatment. They're our history." A ripple of emotion swept through the gathering pride, sorrow, and a sense of belonging. Clara felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. This was their legacy, reminders that they weren't alone in their struggles. They were part of a continuum, storytellers in their right, who had lived this before. Let us not just take these and leave them behind. Another voice chimed in, young Annie, who had barely spoken until now. We could start a collection or a history night. Share these stories, and remember those who came before us. The proposal hung in the air, vibrant with possibility. Clara caught a glimpse of Mr. Carson out of the corner of her eye, his face twisting with disbelief. She felt a surge of defiance. What power they were finding, reclaiming their stories trapped in the confines of this estate. Annie's right. Clara found herself calling out, encouraged by the support surrounding her. Let us make a pledge today to not only stand up for ourselves, but also honor those who paved the way. We can create something beautiful, a testament to resilience. Mr. Carson, still seething, stepped forward, trying to interject. You think you can just, but the crowd was charged with a newfound energy, and the walls felt less suffocating. Clara raised her voice, her hands motioning to the group. This isn't just about advancing our individual needs. It's about rewriting the story of who we are. We have a rich history. Let us learn from it and grow together. Another cheer erupted, more powerful than before. Yet, beneath this wave of enthusiasm, Clara felt a nagging weight settle in the pit of her stomach. This was a glorious moment, but she was acutely aware of the impending threat still looming large. Mr. Carson's anger hadn't vanished. It simmered, ready to boil over. With fingers trembling, Clara turned back to the nearest journal. As she flipped through its pages, her spirit soared with the visions of what they could accomplish if they stood united. But what would happen when Mr. Carson fought back? The question lingered, heavy yet unspoken. How would they protect this spark of change if he unleashed his wrath? And just like that, a new sound joined the unwelcome thought spiraling within her. A creak echoed from the back of the room. Someone had arrived, their shadows stretching ominously against the light. Clara's breath faltered. Who else would disrupt this fragile moment? Panic surged through her. Did they have only this flicker of hope, or would it vanish as easily as it had ignited? Clara's heart raced as she turned slowly toward the source of the creak. The shadow deepened, solidifying into the unmistakable figure of Mr. Carson. His eyes glimmered with a fierce intensity, vengeful and sharp as a dagger. The room went silent, the collective breath held. Clara felt the weight of everyone's gaze, her heart pounding louder than ever. Seems like you all have found a little treasure, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. But treasures can be a burden too, can't they? He stepped closer, and the closer he got, the more Clara could feel the tension radiating off him like heat from an open flame. Mrs. Fletcher stepped forward, her normal docile demeanor quickly replaced by a newfound courage. These are our stories, Mr. Carson. Our history. You can't silence us anymore. Her voice shook slightly, but determination glimmered in her eyes. Mr. Carson's lip curled. And what makes you think I want to just take them back and throw them all in the trash? His gesture was sweeping, as if dismissing the very essence of their lives and sacrifices. Clara clenched her fists, feeling the warmth of rage bubble up. You may think you have power over us, but these stories, she motioned to the journals, are about all of us, about those who came before, who suffered under the weight of your authority. You can't erase their memories. Annie stepped forward, emboldened by Clara's words. We refuse to be invisible. We refuse to be ignored. We will share these stories, and you can't stop us. The energy charged in the room, with a chorus of murmurs amplifying their resolve. Mr. Carson's expression shifted, the menace falling away momentarily. Almost as if he were reconsidering, but only for an instant. Don't you see? This is about control. I control this estate, and with it, I control you all. He looked around, searching the faces in the crowd for a hint of doubt. Isn't that clearer than ever? You think these old stories can change anything? Maybe, Clara said, stepping into that uncomfortable silence that followed. But stories have power, and we're willing to fight for that power. She felt her voice strengthen, resilience blossoming within her. What we uncover today can't be unlearned. Together, we can transform everything. At that moment, a flicker of fear crossed Carson's face, and Clara seized it, pushing forward with her words. Our unity is our strength. This is our past, our present, and we will make sure the future remembers us, no matter how hard you try to erase us. The room seemed to expand with each heartbeat, hope battling against looming despair. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Clara could see it in their eyes, a collective acknowledgement of something bigger than just a simple household, a bond that transcended their day-to-day lives. But just as she began to feel the tide of victory shift, Mr. Carson's booming laugh ricocheted through the air. You think this is a story of heroes? What will you do when the story turns dark? Each of you has a price, a limit to your courage. I'll be waiting to see how far you're truly willing to go. As he backed away, the atmosphere thickened with uncertainty. Clara felt a swirl of dread knot in her stomach. What would happen when he finally unleashed his fury? Could their newfound unity withstand the storm he promised? She glanced at the crowd, resolve etched onto each face. They had found their voices. But at what cost? The spark of hope she felt within now wavered, overshadowed by Mr. Carson's looming threats. As the weight of evening pressed in around them, Clara forced herself to take a breath. They had a fight ahead. Could they truly stand together against someone with such power? Or would they buckle under the pressure? And just then, a loud crash echoed from outside. Everyone jumped, eyes darting toward the door. What now? Clara's heart raced again. What awaited them outside? The sudden crash sent a jolt of adrenaline through Clara's body. She exchanged glances with Annie and Mrs. Fletcher, each face reflecting a mix of fear and determination. The once still air was now electric with anticipation. What was that? Whispered Annie, gripping Clara's arm. The murmur of the crowd rose, but Clara raised her hand, silencing them. Stay here, she urged, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She felt an unshakable need to confront whatever lurked outside, and she couldn't let fear pull them backward. Clara pushed the door open, though with groaning in protest. She stepped out into the gathering twilight, every instinct heightened. The world outside was painted in deepening shades of indigo and gold, shadows creeping closer. And then she saw it, a toppled crate near the entrance of the estate, spilling its contents onto the ground. The paper lanterns, meant to be lit for a celebration, lay scattered like forgotten hopes. Is anyone there? Clara called, her voice ringing through the evening air. It felt agonizingly lonely, her words swallowed by the silence that followed. A rustling came from the bushes nearby, and Clara's breath hitched. She took a step forward, peering into the darkness. Then, as if it were a scene pulled straight from a storybook, a figure emerged, a young girl, no more than 10, her face streaked with dirt and tears. Help! Please! The girl cried, her voice high-pitched with panic. They're coming! Clara knelt down, urgency washing over her. Who is coming? What is going on? The girl looked over her shoulder, eyes wide with fear. The men in the suits, bad men. They want to take us away. Clara's heart sank. Thoughts of Mr. Carson and his menacing control flooded her mind. Where are your parents? She asked, feeling helpless and desperate at once. They left to protect us, the girl stammered. But I couldn't stay inside, we were told to hide. Clara felt her whole body tense. You did the right thing by coming outside. You're safe now. She turned back to the house, calling out. Everyone! We need help. Annie and Mrs. Fletcher rushed to her side. The girl's presence breathed new urgency into the crowd. Clara explained quickly, the fear rapidly turning into a shared resolve. This is bigger than we thought, Clara said firmly, her voice cutting assertively through the chaos now swirling around them. We can't just stand by. If Mr. Carson is behind this, We need to protect those who can't protect themselves." As if resonating with her words, a breeze swept through the estate, rustling the papers still strewn about. Clara felt the weight of the moment crushing down, her heart still pounding, but a sense of fierce purpose igniting within her. "Let us find these men. We'll stand together," Clara commanded, her resolve hardening like steel. The voices among the crowd rose, echoing the growing strength of their unity. They shared looks of determination, but just as they began to formulate a plan, a series of shouts erupted from around the corner of the estate, dirty boots pounding on gravel. Clara squinted into the dim light, her stomach dropping. A group of men in dark suits appeared, faces hard and set, their aim clear. "Get back inside," she shouted, pushing the girl behind her protectively. The air crackled with impending conflict, and Clara's heart screamed in warning. They had found their voice, but what would happen when those voices faced real danger? Would they stand strong, or would fear tear them apart? As the group of men closed in, Clara prepared herself for the fight of their lives. "This is just the beginning," she murmured to herself, determination pouring into her veins. But deep down, doubt crept in. Would their courage hold against the storm that was about to break? The confrontation unfolded like a storm brewing on the horizon, an undeniable force inching closer. Clara felt the chill ripple through her as the men approached, their faces twisted with determination. She stood her ground, ready to protect the girl behind her, fueled by the strength of a newfound family forged from struggle. "Stay together," Clara shouted to the crowd. Tension buzzed through the air, an electric current of solidarity intermingling with fear. She locked eyes with Juan, who nodded, stepping forward to join her side, his expression fierce and resolute. The leader of the men, a broad-shouldered figure with a scowl etched on his face, stepped closer. "We're taking the child. Step aside, and there won't be trouble." "No!" Clara's voice rang out like a beacon, cutting through the chilling threat. "We won't let you take her. She deserves to be safe, just like all of us." Their small group stood determined, a wall of unwavering support against the oncoming tide. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once. Clara couldn't help but feel the embers of bravery kindling within. They had voices, and they refused to cower. Behind her, murmurs rose from the crowd, voices chiming in, "They can't take her. We'll fight for her. Stand firm." With each chant, a flicker of courage glinted in Clara's heart, igniting hope. It was just like the stories in the journals, the struggles and triumphs of those who came before. They were more than just employees. They were a community, a force to be reckoned with. "Get out of the way!" the lead man barked, his voice low and dangerous. Clara wouldn't back down. She stepped forward, trembling with resolve, fists clenched at her sides. "You think terror will control us? Not anymore. We are ready to stand together. Move!" he shouted again, voice laced with fury. A glint of fear flickered across his eyes as he saw the crowd gathering around Clara, bolstered by a sense of unity that felt almost palpable. It was then that Mrs. Fletcher stepped up, her demeanor cool but fierce. "You will regret underestimating us." Her voice carried strength, resonating through the charged air and sending ripples of solidarity throughout the crowd. Clara watched as the wave of determination rolled over everyone, sweeping through the crowd like a tidal surge. Faces brightened, filled with a burning realization they were no longer alone. "Let us stand for what is right," Juan called out, waving his hands to rally support. Unity rippled back, applause echoing, fear steadily melting away. "We're stronger than you think," Clara said, her voice piercing through the tension. "You can't dictate our lives any longer. We have stories to share, lives to protect." For a moment, silence reigned, thick with anticipation. The men in suits were visibly shaken, caught in a web of surprise. They hadn't expected such a swift and fierce response. Then, The weight shifted. One man, visibly troubled, took a step back, looking toward his companions. The hesitation spread through the group like a whisper of wind. Maybe they, too, were affected by the strength that resonated between the gathered servants. As if sensing their doubt, the lead man shouted again, this time losing some of his earlier bravado. You think this is a game? Clara tossed her head back, confronting their fear with defiance. It's no longer a game for us. This is our life. We will no longer be voiceless. Juan stood by her, arms crossed as he gazed at the group of men, the tension ready to detonate. Clara could feel the heat of anticipation swirl around like smoke. They had ignited a fire that couldn't be quenched. Listen! Another voice erupted from the back, a voice filled with emotion, and Clara turned to see old Mr. Jenkins step forward. We may be few in number, but we share a common thread. We will stand or fall together. Time seemed to slow in that moment. Clara could feel the intensity resonate in her soul. This was the moment they had fought for, the invisible connections forged through toil and hardships drawing them closer together. The men hesitated again, glancing at each other. Uncertainty mingling with ferocity. Could they truly act against a united front of courage? Clara's heart soared at the shifting tide. And then, as if sensing victory, she raised her voice above the breathless murmurs of the crowd. What will you do? She challenged. Will you continue to oppress children and families, or will you listen to the voices echoing through these halls? Determination surged, and the crowd responded with cheers. Listen. Stand with us. Their voices intertwined, creating a cacophony that echoed off the estate walls. It was surreal, a symphony of hope clashing against despair. The lead man faltered, glancing back toward his companions, uncertainty etched into their features. Clara could see a doubt creeping in, hesitations flickering like poetry playing out in real time. Together. Mrs. Fletcher shouted again, pushing through the crowd, the fire of satellite revolution leaving trails in her wake. We're worth fighting for. We're building a future, and you have a choice. With that, the tide turned. Murmurs from the men grew louder, warring against their own doubts. Clara could feel the strength growing, overflowing into the air like an awakening. It was a moment for the ages, a moment they could own beyond servitude, beyond fear, a signal of collective consciousness breaking the chains of oppression wrapped around their lives. In a fierce, triumphant shout, she raised her fist into the air. This is the time for change. Join us, or be the last to know what side history truly remembers. With those words cascading through the air like an anthem, Clara realized they were not just standing for themselves, but for generations past, and those yet to come. The men stumbled back, fear finally blooming in their eyes, clenching onto the words of uncertainty. And with that flicker of power ignited, Clara felt her heart soar, knowing they had taken the first brave step toward transformation. The winds of change had begun to swirl, and Clara's heart brimmed with fierce optimism. They were no longer voices in the dark. They were an orchestra of strength rising in harmony. And as the night settled in, she felt the warmth of belonging wrap around her, a feeling that not even the most gilded walls could contain. The fight wasn't over. There would be trials ahead, but together, they would carve a future woven from the shimmering threads of their shared stories, ready to step boldly into the light. Now more than ever, Clara knew they had the power to reclaim their narrative, one echoing with resilience, courage, and hope. So step forward, dear friends. You need to subscribe now to catch the next wave of compelling stories. This is the moment to show your support. Drop a like, feed the algorithm like your dream depends on it. Comment your feelings, your reflections on how bravery can change lives, because your voice matters too. And don't wait not even one more second. Share this transformation instantly with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of unity. The journey together begins here. Don't miss out.